Good day, folks, and welcome to the Anorak Review Show with your host, the Anorak. It's been a while since we last talked about an album by the Eurythmics, over a year and a half ago to be exact. In my 26th episode, I covered the Eurythmics album Revenge, which, well, not as well known as Touch or the album we're looking at today, it does have its own share of good tracks worth listening to. And we certainly have a memorable one today. But before I do so, I think I should touch a bit more in depth regarding the backstory of this band. The two individuals that would eventually form Eurythmics, Dave Stewart and Annie Lennox, actually started out as members of a prior post-punk / new wave band called The Tourists, which was founded around the mid-70s. They had a brief bit of success for a while, having released 3 albums within the span of 1979 to 1980, before soon disbanding in the latter year. Wanting more musical flexibility and artistic freedom, Dave and Annie would soon form their own musical duo, named after the Dalcroze Eurythmics, or the Dalcroze Method, and released their debut album in October 1981, In the Garden. The album wasn't entirely as successful as they would have hoped for, as were a few singles released afterwards throughout 1982. But of course, that would all take a turn for the better when by the new year of 1983, this album came into being, a breakthrough of success. And here it is for its 40th anniversary, Eurythmics' 1983 album, Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. I probably won't go into as much depth on the cover itself, since there's not too much to talk about regarding it. It's a very simple and minimalist piece of artwork, featuring Annie Lennox herself in a little small profile portrait holding up a heart, or maybe it's a box of chocolates. I don't know. Though I am trying to save my sugars though. And up in the middle is above the photo is this variation of D and A, which are obviously the first initials of Dave and Annie. Or maybe they really like that Dolland and Aitchison Opticians Company. I don't know. And so anyways, let's jump into the music itself and find out what Sweet Dreams are truly made of. We begin the album with Love is a Stranger, a simple synth-pop track to start off such an album like this. The drum machine here offers a very clockwork-like beat to the song with a bright and whimsy melodic keyboard on top of it. Annie sings about how love is a stranger in an open car to tempt you in and drive you far away. Love sounds like a creepy person who would drive up and offer you sweets. And in that case, keep as far away from love as possible. And keep your children just as far away from love as well. That or love could come across a moose on the motorway wanting to do some moose stuff. And in the somewhat catchy chorus, she repeats that she wants and admits that it's an obsession. And that's a key word to sum up the major theme of this track, obsession. The feeling of love, or at least one's own perception of what love may be or feel like. The danger of a different kind, and a dangerous drug you can receive but can never get enough of. It's cruel, savage, and it shines like destruction. In the same way that an atomic or nuclear bomb explosion could be seen as shining up the world around it. Like many good songs that center around love and deconstructs the very concept of it, this could be interpreted in a range of ways, not just a love and an attraction for a particular person, but also perhaps a fascination with an item or an object or a character, and so on. How we may become a bit passive and passionate for such, or even overprotective as well, and we might even run the risk of becoming potentially paranoid and unnecessarily jealous. And in the end, the thing that rose us up could also be our downfall. Love is a Stranger is far from being a strange song. Next up, I've Got an Angel, a very techno-tribal song, electribal if you will, with a pumping drum beat, an exotic flute-like sound, and some dramatic synth chords that remind me a bit of Oxygen by Jean-Michel Jarre. The lyrics here are even more minimalistic than that in the previous track, as Annie sings repeatedly with a high angelic voice that she has got an angel. I imagine this was what was playing in little Anakin's head when he first met Padme in The Phantom Menace, or Peter Parker in the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film. Then she immediately switches to a somewhat deeper and more manly voice, likely keeping with the androgynous motif, as she sings about the power of imagination going right to her head. Again, I'm pretty sure this is what was playing in Squidward's head when he went inside SpongeBob's and Patrick's box of imagination in that Idiot Box episode. Anyway, she repeats that over and over as well, but in the last 20 seconds of the song or so, she repeats, "Time is time, it's time to kill." To kill who or what exactly? Is it time to kill time? I mean, if you could literally kill Father Time, it'll probably be bad. The song is among Eurythmics' more experimental tracks, an experimental pop tune in a way, a bit reminiscent of something Kraftwerk or even Giorgio Moroder would compose, and being the shortest track on the album, at 2 minutes and 3/4, it goes by somewhat quick but still steady and angelic. Then we wrap up things a bit with Wrap It Up, a cover of an old song by R&B soul duo Sam and Dave, eschewing the jazzy brass and funky beat in favour of Eurythmics' trademark synth-heavy style. Plus, it's longer than the original by a minute or so. Aside from that, most of the lyrics remain same and intact, aside from a word or two. In fact, one of the two writers of the song happened to be the late Isaac Hayes Jr., aka the voice of Chef from South Park. Oh yes, that Chef. If only he would have done some backing guest vocals for this version in particular. Wouldn't that be cool? Or maybe that Super Adventure Club wouldn't let him do so. Anyway, this song, as you might expect, is about someone watching you for days, loving your sexy ways, and putting your love in his or her box. Which may sound pretty romantic in the fictional world of music, but also may sound a bit creepy in real life. In the chorus, Sam sings to "Wrap It Up, I'll Take It," which sounds more like she's ordering at a drive-thru. No more will she shop around for now, for she's got the best thing in town. She's got that new high-tech mini fridge that she's always wanted. Another thing to note about this is that even though this is technically a female cover of a song originally sung by a man, Annie still sings it as "I'm going to treat you like the queen you are," instead of replacing queen with king or anything, adding a bit of a lesbian or bisexual undertone to this version. Again, likely keeping with Annie's sense of androgyny, or that she's singing about Freddie Mercury from Queen and had predicted the "I Want to Break Free" music video that would come about a year later. And although the song is dominated by keyboards and synthesizers, there is a bit of guitar midway through, right after the third verse and in an instrumental part until it goes out again for a repeat of the first verse. This cover version as a whole reminds me a bit of Devo's version of Rolling Stone's "I Can't Get No Satisfaction," where an old song by one band is taken by another, then drastically changed and altered into a very different style for a different decade. After that is "I Could Give You a Mirror being in brackets. A simple way I could think of to sum up and describe this track in particular would be emotional and mechanical, and in a good way, of course. That deep synth adds a bit of an edge to this track here and serves as a musical backbone. The lyrics here are even more minimalistic than prior tracks, as Annie asks, "How can you be so cold with my arms to hold and enfold you. Not that you're cold in terms of personality, just that you spend an awful lot of time in the freezing rain. Then in the chorus, she offers a mirror to show disappointments and offers history as well, asking if we could ever listen into her. In this, the mirror represents a means of reflecting on oneself, one's own past actions and mistakes, things one might have said or done, and the consequences of such. Even with all the fire burning and ice melting, you still remain so cold. As if in spite of all the chaos and mayhem going on all about, you're still apathetic and unfazed by it all. I could give you this track if you want to hear Eurythmics do a very moody track. Side 1 ends with The Pogues, an atmospheric and almost jazzy tune where Annie sings about being contented and not needing to suffer. You make an impression to take my attention. However, she is put off by your attempt at doing an impression of Morgan Freeman. And when you touch my skin, I smell disaster. Well, I hope it doesn't stink like that Salzburg disaster movie. Ugh. And then there's the chorus, where we hear the sounds of brass and horns appear from out of left field, being played by Dick Cuthell, a member of the ska two-tone band The Specials, which you may know for the song Ghost Town. He also played with the likes of Madness, XTC, and the Pogues. And he orders us to step away and walk away. Just walk away. Give me your pump, your oil, the petrol, and the whole compound, and I'll spare your lives. Just walk away, and there'll be an end to the horror. All she wants is the real thing. That's right, she wants the actual glaive prop from the Kroll film and not just some cheap kid-friendly replica that you might find at Tesco's, if you're lucky. In the second verse, she mentions, walking on pavements we collect in bars. Should she give up, or should she just keep chasing pavements, even if it leads nowhere? Alone and asleep in the houses, she looks inside herself and breaks the glass before turning her head backwards and falling down again. So she cut her hand from breaking the glass, and when she went to get a plaster or some bandage, she tripped and slipped over some of the broken glass on the floor as well. Kind of clumsy. The second chorus, for some reason, eschews most of the instrumentation aside from a bit of the percussion before it all comes back proper, right before we get a groovy trumpet solo from Cuthell himself that goes on for the remainder of the track. If you want a pretty jazzy, groovy, and sensual song of the 80s, take a little walk on the wild side and listen to Eurythmics' The Walk.